Welcome to the Breech Birth podcast. I'm Sasha Hopkins, private midwife, breech birth educator, and your host. This is a space to hear the real, raw, and powerful stories of women who have experienced breech birth in all its layers. Each episode features honest conversations with women who've experienced breech firsthand, offering insight and reflection. This podcast was born from the knowing that these stories need to be heard to inform, connect, and reclaim the story of breech birth. Whether you're navigating breech birth yourself, supporting others, or simply curious, welcome and thank you. Hi, Hayley. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you going?
Yeah, good, thank you.
So, just to give a bit of context for those listening to work out if they want to skip to the next story or listen to yours, can you just share what year your baby was born?
2023.
Where you were located?
Brisbane in Queensland, Australia.
What kind of care you received in pregnancy and during your birth and postpartum?
Yeah, so I received private midwifery care for my pregnancy, birth, and postpartum.
And did you have a vaginal birth or a cesarean?
Vaginal birth.
And how many weeks were you?
I was 36 and 3 when my daughter was born.
Beautiful. Thank you. Do you want to tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am a mother of 2. I have a 4.5-year-old little boy and a almost 2-year-old little girl. I am currently living on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, just mothering away with my 2 wild little beings. I've just been doing some postpartum doula studies, and I am halfway through a postpartum doula mentorship. So looking to branch out into a new sort of career path, hopefully in the coming months.
Amazing. And I believe you do closing of the bones ceremonies for women as well?
Yes, yeah. Anyone on the Sunshine Coast that's looking for some postpartum care, currently sort of in that student phase, but yeah, feel free to shoot me a message and we can connect.
Awesome. Thank you. Would you like to start with your story? So we've got your second was your breech, and so you'd had a birth before. Do you want to give us just a bit of a recap of your first experience and then follow into what your next journey looked like?
Yeah, for sure. So my son was conceived in very early 2020. So I found out I was pregnant in February 2020, just before the ripples of the COVID pandemic was about to hit us. And I very much followed the kind of social norm with his pregnancy. So I fell pregnant. I went to see a GP. I got a referral to my local public hospital. And just went through the steps of that. I did put into being an MGP practice or the MGP group, but I wasn't accepted into that. So
Yep.
I just fell in with the rest of the crowd for just basic care. Like I said, that was at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. So a lot of that early stages of face-to-face care was stopped. There were like telehealth appointments. I think it was quite late into that pregnancy where I actually came face-to-face with a midwife. So I was working full-time, pregnant. I had a very low risk, no complications, very easy pregnancy with him. But I didn't know anyone that had really had a baby or had been pregnant in my close social circles, my friends. So I just went with the flow, I suppose, with that pregnancy. When I went into labor, we went into hospital. I had planned just a very low intervention birth. I thought it would just have a baby and then come home. Like so many other women, that wasn't quite how our story went. I did have a vaginal birth, but that did come with a lot of interventions, which I later learned, was this cascade of interventions, and that played out. And that really, after his birth and after I settled with him and becoming a new mother and through that postpartum period, that really led me into doing some more research and actually understanding what other options are out there. That led me on the pathway to home birth for my daughter, my second baby. It feels like a long time, a lot of learning since 2020, but I fell pregnant with Lois again early January 2023. And by that point, prior to her conception, I knew that for this birth, we were going to have a home birth. We had done all of the research. My husband and I knew exactly sort of what path we were going to take and what care provider we were going to choose.
How did you find out about home birth? So you said...
So it's quite hard to think back now. I think one of the first things that sort of brought my attention towards home birth was there were some podcasts that I had listened to, but one of the biggest pieces was the birth time documentary. And I think that was released in either late or way through 2021. And that documentary really, really opened my eyes to other options and home birth. So my husband and I had watched that a couple of times. And then from there, it was really doing my research. And there was a couple of key people that I loved their work. So Dr. Rachel Reed really helped on my journey onto that decision that we made for our second pregnancy.
Amazing.
So we fell pregnant, contacted a private midwife that felt aligned to us and what our hopes would be to support us in that pregnancy and birth. It was a really smooth, beautiful process. So we engaged in that care. All of our, antenatal appointments were in the home. They were so inclusive. With my husband was involved. My son, who was only 2 at the time, was involved and there for each of those appointments. So it felt really, really family centered. It wasn't us, popping off to the hospital or waiting for hours and not knowing who our care provider was going to be. We were able to really establish this trust and connection and good relationship. And I had a really easy pregnancy. I've felt really fortunate. I haven't suffered with terrible nausea or morning sickness. Obviously a little more tired the second time round when you're running around after a toddler and carrying a very heavy toddler everywhere. But it definitely felt a lot more gentle and a lot more sort of sacred. I had the time to rest more and really appreciated what my body was going through and the changes that were going to occur and just how big birth and postpartum was going to be. So there was a lot of preparation for that period. There was a lot of preparation for our postpartum, how that was going to look, the support that I was going to receive, the time that my husband was going to spend at home, and how we were going to integrate as a family of 4 from 3. I had planned to take 6 weeks, so I finished work 6 weeks prior to my due date. So Lois was due in mid-October. So I finished work towards middle of August, end of August, and it was just a lot of time to really sink into that last stages of pregnancy, to relax, to do all of the cooking, and enjoy it and enjoy that time with my son, just us as a family of 3 before that was to change. Didn't quite go that way. Lois, she decided she was coming a little bit early. She definitely had come on her terms. She's always been that way, I feel, Lois, from conception through to now as a 2-year-old. It's very much her way.
Yeah.
But this is something that having that private midwifery care and establishing that relationship with that care provider, all of these things and all of the research and all of my learnings, it was so amazing because you had someone that I could really talk to in depth at these appointments. It was so different to my first experience in the hospital system where you would see a different care provider at every appointment. It was incredibly rushed. It was really just, what's your height? What's your weight? How big are you measuring? Thanks for coming, and off you go. Whereas with a private midwife, we just had that really deep connection. So any concerns I had through pregnancy or any questions I had, we could talk in depth about those at each appointment. And I remember I would speak to my midwife at length about things like preterm babies and what support was available or what were my options around that, because I was very certain about what I wanted and the care I wanted to receive. I remember, I did have some at-length conversations about having a breech birth and what the care would look like or what support was available around there. I did not know at the time that my daughter was going to be breech.
Have any gut instinct or feeling that baby might be breech, or you just chose to ask about breech?
No, I chose to ask, and I think what led me more about really inquiring more was At that point, I did have a friend that had a breech baby. And some of the podcasts I was listening to and some research I was doing was talking a little bit more about let's normalize breech birth. And it is just a variation of normal. And I was so sure in the fact, and I had so much trust that absolutely our bodies are capable of birthing babies at home most of the time. And I didn't want the fact of, if I had a breech baby, for that to be a reason that my care provider would then say, I'm sorry, but I can't support you in this, and we're going to have to transfer to hospital. So I definitely wanted to ensure that my care that I had chose was right for me and my family and what my choices and wishes were, which it was, and it was lovely. But I didn't have any instinct that I was going to have a breech bub. No, everything was going fine. Everything was ticking along. And then came to 36 weeks. I had been madly cooking and out gathering. My husband and my son's birthdays are very close together, and they happened to be like 5 days apart. And my daughter was due in between those. I remember being out at the shops trying to get birthday presents sorted and everything, to know that the last couple of weeks I just wanted to be at home, put my feet up, have no stresses or thoughts of anything else. And I'd been out shopping one day, and my son had come home with my husband, and I felt just extremely tired, really, really just out of sorts. I felt really uncomfortable. And I think it was a Wednesday night, and the next day I had my birth team meeting booked. I was going to meet my second midwife and my private midwife, and we had been acquiring pieces for our birth box. And I already pre-planned with my husband. I was like, tonight we're just going to sit down once Ollie has gone to sleep, and we're going to go through the birth box, and we're just going to talk things out. And so we're both clear on what's going to happen. We've still got like 4 weeks or so. We're just going to be really prepared and everything. So I got my son to bed. I was feeling really uncomfortable, and I came back into the lounge room and sat on the birth ball and opened the birth box and was just chatting away to my husband. And all of a sudden I felt all of this water on the balls. And I said to my husband, I was like, oh, what's that? And he's like, oh, you've probably just peed yourself. Like, it's, you're heavily pregnant. And I was like, I don't think so. It's not stopping. So I was 36 and 3 at that point. So I knew that I was slightly early or slightly preterm, but I didn't have any fear. There, like, no fear arose in me initially, and I just thought, oh, okay, here, this is this. So I phoned my midwife and I just let her know, and we had a discussion about, what my options were, how I felt. Did I feel safe staying at home? Is that still what I wanted at this point? Definitely went over that I absolutely felt safe. I felt fine in my body. My waters were clear. I did not want to leave. I did not feel like a hospital transfer is something that I felt was necessary at this point. I think that was probably around 8 or 9 p.m. on the Wednesday evening. So we had that phone conversation. I felt really safe. I felt fine. I was just going to go to bed and get some rest and see what played out, see what happened. So I remember, I think it was getting close towards 9 p.m. and I said to my husband, oh, well, shit, the shops are about to close and we could be having a baby tonight. So you better hurry up and go and get some like electrolytes and like a heap of snacks for Ollie, because it was our plan that he was going to be there at the birth, and some fruit and everything. So my husband did this mad dash to the shops, got home in time, got everything we needed. And I think then he was like, oh, I should probably try this like hose out and connection to the tap, because we hadn't done that. We didn't even have the birth pool at home because our birth meeting was supposed to be the next day. So we were really, I was planning to be so prepared and have this deep relaxing, and everything ended up being a little bit of a rush in those moments that it ended up being okay. I think I hopped into bed around, I don't know, 10:30, 11 p.m. And I was sort of having a bit of a a trickle. Like my waters were still breaking. I just popped in a pad. I hopped into bed, had some rest. And I managed to get a few hours sleep, which was just lovely. But then in the very early hours in the morning, I woke and I just felt I needed to be up, and I really just needed some space, some time by myself. And I got up and got a glass of water and sat on the couch and just really just spent the time with myself and connecting to my baby and just going, this could happen any time. Maybe it will happen in a day or two. I was so unsure, but I just knew that I just needed that moment by myself. And I think in that time, I'd started to feel like that first little tightening. And it was only after a couple that I realized, okay, I think I know what this is.
Yeah.
I remember this feeling from the first time. And it was just so nice to have that moment and just sit with myself. It was just really lovely, like really peaceful. And I thought, I'm going to go and run myself a bath, and I'm just going to sit in a bath and I'm just going to really relax into this. So I think it was maybe about like 5 a.m. or before. I'd run a bath, I lit a candle, and I hopped in, and I could really start to feel these tightenings come in more regularly. I thought, maybe I should start taking note of how far apart these are now and see. And I probably had a bath for about half an hour or more and hopped out, and my contractions felt that they were coming like every 10 minutes, sometimes a bit further apart, sometimes closer together. And I thought, well, I'm just going to hop back into bed because I'm feeling a bit tired, but I'm just going to try and see if I can get another hour or so rest. And my husband had woken up, my son had woken up, and I just hopped into bed. Maybe that was like 6:30 or something. And within half an hour, I think I given my midwife a call and just said, look, I'm letting you know that I'm fine. I'm feeling great. I'm really relaxed, but my contractions are so far apart. I'm feeling good. I don't need your support right now, but I'm just letting you know. And then she just said to me, that's great. Like, see how you go. Just rest. Call me when you think, you need me, or you're feeling that you're wanting me there. Knowing that she was about an hour's drive, getting in rush hour at that time of the morning. And I think I got off the phone, and it was probably maybe another half an hour, and things really started to ramp up. And I remember my husband coming in and was like, do you want a cup of tea, or can I do? And I was like, I do not want a cup of tea. I really don't want you near me asking me all of these questions right now. I just need some space. And he was entertaining my son and playing, and I had all these visions of having this really lovely kind of laboring process where, we had the TENS machine there if I needed it, and I had the birth ball, and I didn't have the birth pool yet because everything was happening a little sooner than expected. But I kind of hopped out of bed, and I remember going to sit on the birth ball out in the living room, and things really, with that movement, pace was getting a lot quicker. My contractions were a few minutes apart, and at that point I just asked my husband to call the midwife. I was like, I can't talk. I just want to sink into this. Can you please ask for her to come now? So he phoned and said, yeah, Hayley's ready for you to come. And he went and ran me a bath, a nice warm bath. I was just feeling like I needed to be in the water. I was not comfortable on the birth ball at all. I felt just this really low pressure, and just sitting down, it was not comfortable. So I moved off the ball, and I had a birth comb. And I felt just most comfortable just laying on the couch. I was just really relaxed. And I had my birth comb, and my husband was running a bath, and my son was running around somewhere. And my husband came out and was like, your bath is ready. Do you want to go hop in? And I felt this immediately. I was like, I don't want to move. I really felt that if I got up and moved and walked from the couch to the bathroom, that I could maybe have this baby right now. I was just really feeling quite close. So I waited for my midwife. She wasn't far away. And as soon as she got there, she was like, okay, it's sounding like you're not far. So it was really happening quite quickly. And she helped me to the bath. I think at some point the second midwife was called, and she was making her way down. And I just labored away in the bath. It was lovely. I had, the support of having towels put in there for me to make it a little more comfortable. At one point, my husband hopped in. My son was running around. I was aware at some point that the second midwife had arrived, but I was so sort of in my place at that time. I was really sinking in and just laboring away. And that was going for a little while in the bath. But I started to feel I have the smallest bathtub in the world. And I started to feel really uncomfortable. I was lying back and I just wanted to turn around instincts. I just wanted to be on all fours, and my back was really starting to ache, and that just was not possible to do that in the bath. So I did stay in there, and I think I started to feel those urges of pushing in there. Like, it was just beautiful synchrony of timing that the birth pool was ready for me to hop into at that point. So I was helped back from the bath to the pool, and that was just that most beautiful relief, just having that bigger space, the comfy pool and the warm water. I think that, it's about 10 a.m. I'd gotten into the birth pool. And I just labored away in there, but it started to slow down a little bit. So I was having those instincts of sort of pushing in the bathtub. But by the time I got to the birth pool, things had sort of started to slow a little. It was just a really nice experience. I was so in my own place. I was very unaware of what was happening around me. I had my husband come in and go in, and my son come in and go in, and I was holding onto my birth comb, and I had my midwife there just giving me, lovely support. I remember her doing some hip squeezes and pushes on my back, which were just bliss. But it was a really nice, there wasn't this overwhelming, intense feeling of pain. I never think back and go, oh, that was just a really hard, really painful time. The feelings were strong, but it wasn't painful. I think at that point it started to push, and things were slowing down a little bit. So we tried some different positions. I remember like propping my leg up, leaning back to my back with my legs in. She wasn't coming as such. We didn't know that she was a girl at this point, but Bub wasn't coming. So it's just a little push-in phase was a little bit longer, a little bit prolonged, but not too much.
Unusual for second babies. They seem to like to come nice and quick, but it sounds like this was a bit slower.
Yeah, she was definitely slower, and it slowed down from how I was feeling before I got in the bath, how I felt that she was going to come so suddenly. It slowed down quite a bit. So I tried some different positions, and then I think I then got myself back onto like all fours over towards the edge of the birth pool, and Bob started to crown. My husband was out of the room, I don't know, providing Ollie with another snack. And I remember just so gently, my midwife put her hand on my lower back and said, Bob is deciding to come bottom first. And my reaction was just like, oh, okay. Like I just didn't, there was nothing in that. I don't even know, maybe I didn't quite register that at the point, but there was nothing in me that I felt fearful at all. I was like, okay, well, great. She's coming bottom first. At this point, I think I just want her to be born.
Yeah.
So I don't really mind which way she's coming. So she had come bottom first. So she was a complete breech. And my midwife was just so calm. There was no panic. There was no concern. There was no great emergency as such. And my husband came back in, and I heard my midwife gently say, Bub is coming bottom first. And I think he had like a moment of panic come across, and he was a bit like, oh, okay, oh, right. But speaking back to him, he was like, I just felt so safe and held in that moment because you felt completely safe and held and had trust. And our care provider felt the same way. That was the energy in the room, was this is absolutely fine. There's no emergency here. This is just another kind of a natural birth, and this is how Bob's coming. So I did some more pushes, and her legs eventually came through as well. At that point, though, not much more was happening. So there was a little bit of like guided, like, I suppose, like forced pushing. It didn't feel like my body was instinctually doing those movements. It was me. I was really bearing down and doing some pushes to birth the head. Still in the water at this point, still in the pool. My midwife had barely touched me or touched Barb or intervened. But her head was taking a little while. There was a couple of minutes or however long at this point. And then my midwife talked me through about like some maneuvers that we were going to do. And I think we'd maybe tried a shoulder press in the water, but her head just wasn't flexing at that point, and her head wasn't birthing. So at that point, we had said, midwife had recommended, let's hop out of the pool, let's give ourselves some more space. So as my husband supported me and my midwife supported Barb out of the water, and I just got on to all fours on the floor, towels down, and it was moments. And my midwife just explained that she was going to do one more little shoulder press on Barb, and immediately after that her head was born and she was passed straight through to me and straight up on my chest. And that, it was just moments. It was amazing. And she took her first little murmurs, and it was just the most unreal experience, like that moment of just pure empowerment of holy crap, we've done this, we've birthed Bob at home, but she's also breached, and she's absolutely fine. I think just maybe the shock as well of her coming that slightly preterm, I wasn't quite prepared for. Within this moment, everything had happened to come earlier than I thought. She was breached, but she was absolutely fine. And she's caught up on my chest and moving and squirming and looking for the boob. And it was magical. Like, my husband was right there next to me. We went and grabbed my son. He wasn't there for the actual birth, but he was there immediately after. And it was the most, just, I don't know, amazing experience to go from birthing your baby on the floor to like straight onto your couch, being held by people around you that were just so supportive of you and your choices, and just feeling so safe in your own environment that it was a moment that I don't think we'll ever forget as a whole family.
Yeah, amazing. Did she look or behave like a preterm? Like, sometimes they can have issues with breathing, they can look small.
Yeah, no. So there were no issues with her breathing at all. She was very pink. She was flexing. She was breathing. Her weight, she was 3 kilos. So
she was good weight for 36 weeks.
She was a good weight. Yeah. She
Amazing.
was slightly smaller than what my son was. But no, she didn't feel like incredibly tiny or at all like that. So yeah, Bob was good. She did have quite a nice bruise on one side of her bottom, which was big for like a couple of days, but that went down and she was lovely.
Awesome. So what did that look like after birth and birth of the placenta? Did you do that yourself?
Yeah, so I think we went immediately from the spot on the floor where she was birthed straight onto the couch, just having cuddles, just waiting for the birth of the placenta and what was going to be next, all cuddling away. And then that was taking a little bit of time. So I didn't feel any sort of contractions again for a little while. There were some things coming, but the placenta, it didn't feel like it was coming. I had no more urges to push or contractions to birth the placenta. But again, there was no rush. There was no sort of fear around that. And there was no pressure from my midwife either to bring any sort of immediate concern to, oh, okay, placenta hasn't been birthed. It's been an hour. That time started to go on. And on a little bit. So her placenta wasn't showing any signs of being born. Lois was on my chest, cord still intact, everything. I think it was maybe after 3 hours or something. I'm unsure exactly of timing, but I was starting to feel like a little bit antsy. I just wanted to birth the placenta. I wanted to settle with her now, and I was feeling a little bit. So at that point, we decided, it wasn't our plan, but we did decide to separate the cord at about 3 hours. I just felt I needed that separation to be able to get up and move around a little bit more.
Had she had a breastfeed?
She had had a little suckle, yes. I think at one point we'd even been to the toilet and I had been holding her with a bowl in the toilet and she was sort of feeding there as well. I was just feeling really starting to feel comfortable at that point, and I wanted some space to move around. And so we were all on the couch as a family, and we burnt her cord and separated her really slowly, and that felt just beautiful. She then just lied on my husband's chest and was having skin to skin, and I felt a lot better in myself that I could actually move a little more freely now.
Yeah.
So I had moved around and we'd gone back to the toilet and put a bowl in the toilet, and my midwife, we were doing some acupressure. So really doing some acupressure points of like around the ankles and on the shoulders, and it was through that that I think at about the maybe fourth hour or something, the placenta was finally born into a bowl on the toilet.
Amazing.
And that did feel really good. Like I was at the point when I really wanted that to just be complete now.
Yeah.
And that was just, it took longer than expected, but I was amazed at how well that acupressure had worked. So placenta was caught in the bowl. It was amazing. And then it was just back to the couch. So I went back to the couch. Bob straight on. Bob was having a feed. My midwife done some beautiful prints for me. And I got a lovely photo of just my son sat there next to my second midwife, just having a look at the placenta and watching what was occurring and having cuddles with the new bub and everyone all together.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was just lovely. And it kind of felt just like a normal day. We'd had a baby and it was now towards late afternoon and we were just going to be left there. Yeah, it's lovely. It was just lovely.
Yeah. Sometimes with retained placenta, women can have heavier bleeding. Did you have any bleeding issues or anything after birth?
No, I had bleeding. There was definitely bleeding after birth, but there was no excessive bleeding, nothing that caused any concern. No postpartum hemorrhage at all. It was just a regular bleeding. And the feeling of like being able to birth your baby in the morning and even having that longer stage between birth and then birthing the placenta, but just being there by early afternoon, sat on the couch and just feeling so good was such a different experience to how I had birthed my first baby. It was, it was the most empowering moment. It was just amazing. All snuggled together, and I think hubby gave my son some dinner and popped him to bed, and we had cuddles, and then we all just went and hopped into bed together.
All in a day's work.
All in a day's work, yeah. It was, but it was just a beautiful day. It was like early spring in Brisbane and just the most beautiful day. The sun was shining. Yeah, it was lovely. And then into bed and then all just waking up together as a family the next morning, and my son being a big brother and so excited to hold and poke his new little sister. Yeah, just have those beautiful snuggles, staying in bed for such long periods of time. It was really lovely.
Awesome. And what did your postpartum look like? Breastfeeding? Was there any issues or complexities?
Yeah, so fortunate. No issues with breastfeeding. She took to the breast really easy and hasn't left since. We're still going. But it was a really, really relaxed postpartum. Again, that was something that was so important to me in my first birth. Not even sure I was aware of the word postpartum or what that period was when I had my first son. So when I had Lois, I knew that had to look completely different for me. We had planned to have my husband at home for 3+ weeks. We had done the cooking. We had organized some external care for my son with grandparents that would come. And we just really took the time to slowly integrate as a family. But for me to really just rest and establish that bond and breastfeeding. And it was a completely polar opposite experience to the first time. And how different I felt in my body and how different that immediate connection was to my baby, just having no separation and just really being held and really being cared for. Yes, it was beautiful.
So good. Sounds beautiful. So knowing what you know now, if you had another breech baby, would you do anything differently?
No, No, I don't think I would do anything differently. I would do the same. I think, find that care provider that is there to support you and willing with the knowledge and the skills and the trust. I think the trust is such a good thing, especially just as a woman, as a mother, to have that trust in yourself and in your baby. That's something that I learned the second time round. The first time I felt I outsourced so much of that to other people that really didn't have that wholesome care.
Yeah.
But the second time around, just having that trust and carrying that through, not just during birth or early postpartum, but actually carrying that through on the parenting journey of having that trust in yourself, in your instincts as a mother, and the trust in your baby that they will communicate their needs in however way, and that they will come through in their own unique way. That's definitely wisdom that you get over time.
What's some words of wisdom you want to share? I feel like you just did it. Is there any advice or resources that you would recommend for anyone listening to this story that has a breech baby on board?
I think listening to stories, and I think that that's why this is such important work that we're doing, is sharing stories, because it's from women's experiences and mothers' experiences. I think that we can learn so much. There's some great resources and great research out there that you can find, but it's really listening to stories and experiences and developing that self trust and really digging deep and listening to your body and your instinct. Yeah.
Amazing. I have a question. I wanted to ask, sometimes breech bobbies have a bit of tightness in their neck and need a bit of osteochiro. Did you use anything like that? Did Lois need anything?
Not that I found so much tightness in her neck, and not that we did immediately after her birth, but we did use an osteopath for her. And that was more just, I don't think it was really related to her birth as such, but it was more around she just did not like traveling and being in the car seat. Was really sort of unsettled at periods of time. So we had engaged with an osteopath a little later down the track.
Yeah, great.
But from me noticing the way that she would feed, I didn't ever notice any tightness in her neck or that she preferred to be in one particular position.
Yeah, amazing. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
Gosh, it feels like such a while ago now.
Yeah.
I suppose the only thing is, if there are people out there, if there are mothers and women that know they're going to have a breech, to know that, it can be just a variation of normal births, and you don't need to over medicalize it. And
yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to share.
Thank you for listening to the Breech Birth podcast. These stories matter. They stretch what we think we know and bring voice to experiences that need to be heard. I'm so grateful to the women who have shared their experiences with us, raw, real, and full of wisdom. If this episode resonated with you, please follow, share, or leave a review. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Breech Birth Podcast. And if you have a breech story to share, I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, may we continue to reclaim the narrative, one story at a time.